two people will meet at a very secluded area within the game. They will drop the item, and then the guy would drop the money, and then they'll walk across like both different sides, and then they'll pick the items, and then they'll go off.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Surfing the Web3. I'm your host Sandra, and today with me I'm joined by Ganesh. So Ganesh is the founder of Firebond, an AI-driven growth marketing and analytics platform engineered to empower Web3 games. Hi Ganesh, thank you so much for joining us today.
Hi Sandra, really happy to be here. It's my first time doing this podcast. Really love what you and the team is doing with Surfing the Web3.
So tell us more about yourself and your experience and background and what led you to start Firebond.
Yeah, 100%. I've been in the tech space for about 8 years, and the last 2 years I've been more engaged in the Web3 space. I started my career in the Web3 space as a marketing consultant for a crypto rewards company in Singapore. So essentially, if you go into like NTUC or 7-Eleven, you buy something, you can get paid out in crypto rewards. And we're trying that angle in 2018, but it was too new and nascent for the country at that point of time. Crypto adoption was not really high, so the company didn't do very well. But I got exposed to the technology, and I really fell in love with how it could probably change lives of people living around us. I've stayed engaged in the space. Prior to starting Firebond, I was part of a decentralized finance exchange platform called Cake DeFi. I was part of their leadership team managing communities where we are managing a sizable community base of 500,000 users across the globe. I stumbled upon big problems that I decided to solve when I was leaving Cake DeFi, and I joined Antler, a VC arm that helps founders like me or first-time founders like me start a company from 0 to 1. That's where we ideated Firebond, and that's how we started Firebond actually.
Thanks for sharing that. That's very interesting. And, just really being exposed in the startup space, you always find problems that you can solve and people who are very like-minded that can really come together and build something that actually has an impact. Maybe share more about what Firebond is solving for.
Yeah, for sure. Happy to, right? Firebond is an all-in-one analytics and growth company. So we help Web3 games track their data points across their product, so their game, browser, or app. And then we do on-chain data right now, which is for any Web3 game that's engaging in the blockchain space. This is now something that they can track because of the introduction of crypto wallets. And then we track social analytics. So we combine all of this together to give you a unified experience of like where your gamers are at and how they're spending and how long are they playing your game. On top of that, we've built in-depth engagement features. So a lot of gamers in the Web3 space want to feel part of the creation journey aside from the playing journey. So we have built features such as quizzes and feedback and even referral missions, which you can do to help be building the game alongside the game developers. So an example would be if, let's say, there's a new gaming environment that you want to create or a game map you want to create within the game. Now, game developers could use Firebond's platform to put out a poll or quiz, whether they would like this part about it. And gamers are incentivized to take part and answer these quizzes. So the gaming experience could be created together with the games right now. And this is something that we truly believe would be the future of gaming companies.
With a general understanding of what Firebond is solving for, I think the question I have is why specifically games, right? How do you fall into the gaming space and decide that this is something that you want to solve for?
Yeah, I've always been a avid gamer since young. I've started with games with like Counter-Strike, Dota in the much earlier years. I played a lot of MMORPG games like Ragnarok. MapleStory is a game closer to my heart, and they are recently like getting back into the Web3 space, which is quite interesting. But when I was about 14 years old, I was playing MapleStory for like at least the whole year, 80% of the time. My school teachers were not the most happiest people at that period of time. But I managed to make some money out of it. So there was like a thing called Snowshoe back then, which is basically a game asset. And then you put in a scroll into it and you get paid for it. Like if it succeeds, like a 10% scroll, you put it into a shoe, it succeeds, and then you can sell it for higher value. I sold some of my mesos and my account for about $5,000 to $6,000 on that year, which for a 14-year-old kid was a lot of money, and it got me really excited at that point of time.
Right.
And fast forward, I guess what I did back then is what people could do in a more organized fashion in the Web3 space.
Yeah, I think it's very interesting, how you've been interacting with so many different games during your childhood. And I'm sure many other people also have that same experience. And I myself, I play some games and probably not as active as you, but I play Dota. And then what I found really interesting is, buying different skins, customizing my character. But I've never really thought about how I can earn from the time that I spend in the game. I just play purely for fun. And how you have thought about actually earning from your Maple, account, I thought was very interesting. And how do you thought about doing that?
I would say by chance, actually. So there was just a secondary market that was created and people were selling their mesos online. There were other gamers who were willing to pay for this. And this was not like authorized by the game, so because like the games didn't want this to happen, as it promoted a different type of behavior. Like it's like you could pay to excel in the game. But people were doing it regardless. Mm-hmm. And how it was done was, let's say you're going to sell an item in the game. Two people will meet at a very secluded area within the game. They will drop the item and then the guy would drop the money and then they'll walk across like both different sides and then they'll pick the items and then they'll go off. So that's how a trade was being done for MapleStory specifically back then.
Right, within the game?
Within the game, yeah.
Oh my gosh, this is quite interesting. But then the transaction happens outside the game.
Within the so the selling of the items happens within the game, but the transaction,
the monetary transaction, right?
Always happens, outside the game. You're right.
Right. So I guess we can see that this was something that maybe gamers and users have already been looking for within games, but gaming companies never really built on like any features to offer such a service, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then how have you seen the Web2 gaming space evolving now into Web3?
Yeah, so I guess, one thing I was thinking about is why were gaming companies not doing that? And one of the reasons I could think of is that this means that gamers could exit out of the game. And it also obviously promotes a different class of gamers, which they didn't want. They want everyone to actually play the game properly, to excel in the game. So I guess that's why they never did it. But in the Web3, the main ethos of the whole ecosystem is that we grow together. So we do something and then we reap the benefits together. So when Web3 games were created, the structure was such that if you do a certain action, you play enough, you earn enough, you could monetize those actions. Right now, so initially, I think when the games first started, there was like huge upsides, and countries like Philippines or Vietnam, a lot of gamers came from there, as it made more sense for their time and the amount of money they were getting. But as more gamers were being created, more gaming guilds were being created, the amount of money you could make out of the game were being reduced out there. So I guess the idea for Web3 games is not so much about just being able to earn, but it's more about you can earn if you actually play a Web3 game. And people like that idea right now.
What you said about Philippines totally makes sense. I think there's a very big XC community there, and a lot of people are actually treating it more as an income opportunity as well, because they can actually earn more than they do if they do like a normal like day job, right? Maybe if you can share a bit more about how Firebond can change this gaming experience for users. You said that as more people play a game, the opportunity for them to earn actually decreases. So how is Firebond trying to solve for this?
For sure. There's two angles to look at it. From a gaming studio perspective, there's two things they always do, right? One is they try to acquire users through multiple different approaches: performance marketing, community building approach, and events, of course, and tournaments. After that, I think the main challenge is the retention. So generally, before any game goes out of beta, they start off with like a very small number of like a 10% retention rate. This doesn't justify the launch of the game yet. So once they get to like a 40% retention rate, that's when they launch the game. We come in more from the analytics point of view. So we are able to track all the data points that you have to make sure and make you understand whether your retention rate is high over here. And if it isn't, pinpoint like which are the areas that is causing that not to happen, and where are they dropping out from. This is what they call product analytics, and there are leading companies like Amplitude that does product analytics very well. However, on-chain data, which is the data points you look at in the Web3 space, is something newer and nascent. And that's where we come in to provide a more unified solution here. But for gamers specifically, we have built out engagement solution, which is what they call Quest. So you can do something and get rewarded for it. So this is interesting because as a gamer, if you feel like you're part of the game, so if, for example, they could ask you to refer like 10 members and you really like the game so much, you're referring like 10 people in, now you can get rewarded for it, which is not very common in Web3 games right now.
Yeah, because it's also a very nascent space. So there are customer engagement solutions on a Web2 space. And then what Firebond is doing is pulling out their data on the blockchain. And I'm just interested to know, like, are there other similar solutions that are, solving the same problems as you? And what makes Firebond different from those solutions?
I'm not going to say that we are the only ones trying to solve this problem because other companies have also seen the same problem that we're solving. The advantage we have is I don't think anyone's solving the problem in Southeast Asia. And specifically Korea and Japan are very big gaming markets that we focus upon. On top of that, we have features that the other competitors also don't provide. So the engagement features are something that most analytics companies don't focus on. And Web3 gaming studios, especially the newer ones, they can't afford an engagement solution and an analytics solution. So that's where we come in a lot more handy, where we focus on both of them.
I can see that you're really thinking about the whole ecosystem from the point of view of a gamer, but also a gaming company, right? What are some opportunities areas that you foresee for Web2 gaming companies, and where do you see the industry headed?
This question revolves more around innovation. So a lot of times people in the industry, especially in the Web2 gaming industry, or generally people outside the gaming industry, they ask that the Web3 gaming experience is not as rich as it can be compared to the Web2 gaming space. So are you sure this is going to stick, right? Like, is all this going to make sense in future? And if you look at it, I don't think it's an apple or orange situation where only one could exist. I think both experiences could coexist. Web2 gaming studios or Web2 games will always be there. You're going to be still playing on consoles, mobile, and all of that. It's just that Web3 gaming experiences are something that gamers are already used to. So like Axie Infinity and all like are games that people have participated and have shown a liking. Now, as a Web2 gaming studio, the question is, do you want to leave this audience just hanging over there, or do you want to also find a way where you could integrate this ecosystem as part of your other games that are incorporated? I think one of the wins here is Google recently allowed games that, including NFTs, as part of their app store. So they allow like crypto adoption within their app store, which is a huge plus and a show of faith that Web3 games are the future, or are part of the future, at least.
You shared that, Firebond is mainly solving for user engagement on the Web3 space. But then what you share as well, Web2 gaming companies are increasingly thinking about how they can build in these Web3 like features onto, their games. And I definitely feel that in terms of graphics, it's definitely more advanced for Web2 games. And then that is when a user decides like the pros and cons of participating in like both type of games. So do you see any convergence points, in the near future, and how would that look like?
I think that's a tough one. But based on just some of the market data that I normally look at, about $3 billion have been invested in the Web3 gaming space. And generally games have a very long development cycle. So the best games will still take time to come. But this means that with all this funding, there's so much of opportunities and so much of different type of gaming experience that is possible in the near future. I truly believe there'll be a convergence, but this is not dependent on the games, but it's more about the friction it takes to get into the ecosystem. So to give an example, right now, for me to participate in a game, and let's say there are a couple of blockchains out there like Solana, Ethereum, Polygon, and some of the blockchains means a different way of getting into the ecosystem. So you have to download a wallet, create a wallet, and a wallet is not like a user login. Like they give you this 12 secret word phrase that you want to keep hidden and you don't want to reveal out to anybody. So let's say you get past all of that, you purchase your first crypto, you have to protect this crypto, you have to buy the asset on a marketplace, and then participate in the game. This is too much of legwork right now to participate. And in future, I think a lot of companies like Alchemy is trying to solve that, where it's like a one-click login. You immediately log in, you can participate in the game, and you can buy the assets through a game. And I'm assuming there'll be like debit cards allowing crypto payments for ease of use. So I guess with that changing and the gaming experience increasing, there'll be a huge convergence, right? Like, why not?
I'm also putting myself in a position of a user, a gamer, right? And there are still a lot of friction points to solve for, and then that will change the user experience. And then slowly, these kind of solutions to improve the in-game experience will become very, very valuable as the industry develops as a whole as well. So as you can see, there's still a lot to improve in the industry. So I'm very excited to hear what's in the roadmap for Firebond.
For sure. As an early stage company, we primarily do two things. One is we want to be constantly building and shipping out different features. So we have like a pipeline of very unique features that we believe the customers would be liking a lot. On top of that, then we're constantly just speaking with customers to see how we could shape our product better. And we want to be focusing on other markets as we go along this year.
Do you foresee any challenges in the road ahead for Firebond and also in the gaming industry in general, in terms of regulatory or, like you mentioned, educational gaps as well?
On a gaming industry level, I think there's still definitely a lot more room for improvement. Especially in Singapore, the gaming ecosystem is still evolving. Esports is something that other countries, or especially in the European or American region, it's a lot more prevalent versus in the Southeast Asia region. So I believe that could change. In terms for Firebond, we are very focused on empowering gaming studios. As much as regulations do change, we don't see the company being at risk, as we don't deal with crypto directly or we don't deal with consumers very directly. However, I think we can't be too relaxed, as we feel that, like the other companies out there who might also be trying to work on the same space. So we got to be constantly innovating and build a product that is sustainable and useful in the long run.
Yeah, you mentioned gaming studios, right? So could you share more a bit about, what kind of gaming studios are you working together with, and, any exciting things in the pipeline?
Yeah, for sure. So recently we have partnered with this one gaming studio, which is a listed gaming studio in New Zealand and Singapore. So they have like large gaming titles, AAA titles that most players have played with. And they have a Web3 gaming arm where we are focused on empowering as well. On top of that, we have partnered with Polygon, one of the leading blockchains out there, their top ranking game. I was recently in Vietnam, and we're speaking with a lot of the gaming studios out there to see how they could be first part of our like pilot customer base. For the first few months, we are limiting to our customer base to at least only 10 gaming studios. And then in the coming future, we hope to expand that.
What are the things that they are most excited about is when you speak with them and, you try to build together with them?
Yeah, so they're very excited that we are integrating on-chain analytics on top of the other analytics solutions. But as an immediate use case, a lot of them want to do airdrop campaigns. So they're like, how can we use your engagement features to do these campaigns, to reward our users, and make sure they're coming back and playing our game longer? So that is something they were focused on, and we are also trying to track like the exact retention rate level by utilizing our product.
That's very exciting, and I really, wish you all the best and wish Firebond all the best. Maybe now, just to get a little bit more personal, I just want to know more a bit about how your journey has been so far, and building Firebond as an entrepreneur.
I think if you ask like most founders, they would say the journey is always quite rocky. On the outside, it always looks pretty cool to be a founder. But generally, I think what happens on the inside is making tons of mistakes, trying to learn from it very quickly, and trying to make decisions as fast as possible, not knowing whether it's going to be the right or wrong decision. But it's the ability to quickly learn and move forward that I think it's something that I've grown to get more used to when I'm building Firebond. So what's a bit more unique at Firebond is we don't have an office space in Singapore. We are headquartered over here, and when we were incubated at Antler. However, the company is structured remotely. So we have members coming in from India, Thailand, and Vietnam specifically. So the challenge with that is everyone has a slightly different time zone. On top of that, a different working culture, and you have to instill a very positive yet motivating culture all online right from the start is something that requires more time and processes to be in place. So that's something that I found really interesting. But the benefit here is that with a remote working culture, people are more excited to be working harder for a shorter period of time, plus have the flexibility to do what they want to and when they travel. So that has allowed us to get better quality talents, top talents. And don't get me wrong, where I think Singapore has the best talent as well. It's just that as an early stage company, we are limited with our resources on how we could spend. And based on that, it made more sense for us to be structured remotely.
Do you find that it can get a bit lonely sometimes that, everything is so remote and then having to balance keeping communication lines open, but understanding that, people are now more aware of needing their flexibility and not being micromanaged. And how do you feel about that?
I feel probably a new startup could spring up from this problem, which I see is that personally, I would like to know how the team members are feeling at every point of time, because I believe not everyone could be like just feeling happy all the time, but it's very hard to track it. And if there was a way we could share more openly about how we are feeling when we're working in the company, I guess that would instill a stronger remote working culture. And I think, yeah, you would feel lonely, like naturally, because a lot of times you're not as close as you are to someone you're working with in office, because you're going to lunch with them, you're going for drinks with them. But when you're working remotely, you're just seeing them over Zoom or Google Hangout. So there's only that much of interaction you can have, right? So I guess it's tough, but then maybe constant check-ins and maybe extra effort to do some team bonding activities online does help a bit.
Do you still see the value in having in-person interaction though?
Yes. So I feel that from my experience, I don't think everything could be done remotely. So for any remote company, they still do have like strategy sessions or growth sessions, like at one confined space in a different country. It could be Bali or somewhere more relaxed for everyone to gather together, right? So I believe there's value for people coming together whenever.
I can see that there is a fine balance in having that remote working culture and also the in-person experience, and that is what builds a great startup founding team. And I guess looking at the broader startup ecosystem, how have you been able to find support in building Firebond?
I'm very grateful for startup accelerators like Antler and Blockchain Founders Group, where they empower first-time founders like me from an ideation stage to starting a company. Because a lot of times when you're starting a company, you don't exactly know which are the areas you should be focusing on and which are the areas you should be looking at for a long-term success rate. And when you are part of this accelerator program, you're guided from day one till you incorporate your company on how you should be structuring the company. But what's really fun about and insightful about these accelerators is you get to meet really, really experienced founders coming in and giving you talks. So I've met Henry from Kata, which is a unicorn out there that does ESOP management. And he came in to give a very informal conversation of how he started the company, which inspires founders like me to do better when they're starting a company. And definitely some of the Singapore winners like Caro's founder has come in to give his presentation of how he started the company and what are the areas he's looking at, his decision-making process, which you can learn from, which wouldn't have been possible if I was just building a company on my own. So there are a lot of accelerators. Like Antler has a huge presence out there globally. So in any country you are, you could participate in it. And if you prefer a more remote working or remote accelerator type of model, then there's Web3 accelerator arms like Blockchain Founders Group, which is doing a really great job at as well.
Many founders that I speak to, they have very different reasons for, starting something. And usually, if it could be that they are very passionate about solving a problem, or, they know that they are going to build something that is going to be useful, and then maybe they have an endpoint, like an exit strategy. So I'm interested to know what is your trajectory?
I'm very focused on making sure that the product needs to be highly useful in the Web3 space. So for us, we want to be making sure that we are the leading analytics and engagement solution out there in the Web3 space. And we're not looking to sell the company at any point of time in the next few years till that mission and the vision is completed. So I guess we don't have a very clear exit strategy at this point of time.
Something I like to end the episode with, a rapid fire round of questions. So first question for you is, what is your favorite local food?
Okay. I have a lot of favorite food, especially in Singapore. But one I go to very regularly is the chili pan mee behind Prinsep Street. They're really good. That's one of my favorites.
What motivates you to get out of bed every morning?
I like to build a company where we are surrounded by the most brilliant minds out there, where we're driving innovation at every point of time. So that's really that gets me up and going most of the days, right?
Right. And who is your idol?
I would say, interestingly, one of my idols is the founding father of Singapore, Mr. Lee Kuan Yew. First of all, I think he's a very, very charismatic speaker, very eloquent. So when you hear him speak, you are able to understand what he's trying to push across with very minimal words. He describes with gusto and passion, as you can see about when he's describing the policies of Singapore. On top of that, the results speak for itself. Like, he has created something that we are living in out of something else, like when he was in the 1960s. So I would say he's definitely one of my idols that I look up to.
Thank you so much for joining us today, Ganesh. It's been really lovely to speak with you and learn about Firebond and learn about, the gaming industry and where it's headed, what you're solving for, and also, your personal experiences as a founder, as a builder. And, I'm just really very inspired. And thank you for joining us today.
Thank you very much. Really happy to be here, right?
Yeah. And with that, we've come to the end of another episode of Surfing the Web3. Hope that has been insightful for you. And if you like what you're hearing, keep a lookout for our next episode.